Okay, here we are, our next interview at the National Religious Broadcasters Conference in 2025 here in Grapevine, Texas. And my next guest I'm really excited about. Judy Elias leads an organization called Heroes to Heroes. And this is a group that ministers to America's heroes, our veterans. And Judy, thank you so much for coming on Truth and Liberty today. It's great to have you.
Richard, thanks so much for having me. It's so important what we're doing, what we need to talk about with our heroes, and thank you for giving us the platform to do so.
So happy to do that. Tell me what Heroes to Heroes is all about.
Okay, we provide spiritual healing and peer support for veterans who have attempted suicide due to what is called moral injury. And moral injury, there is no separate diagnosis for moral injury. Veterans who suffer from moral injury are usually diagnosed with PTSD, which it is part of.
Okay.
Yet, moral injury can be defined as the shame and guilt caused by an action either taken or not taken that leads to a horrific result. And so in war, for example, boy, there are so many, but we talk about survivor's guilt. I'm the only one who survived.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was a shot taken or a shot not taken that resulted in something horrific. Someone losing their lives, someone feeling that they could have done something more.
Mm-hmm.
So they come home with this shame and guilt. And they're told they have PTSD. They tend to go through program after program, and they don't know why they're still feeling that way. Many people who are dealing with moral injury will isolate right away, and families can see that a churchgoer is no longer going to church,
Wow.
no longer taking part in Easter celebrations, Christmas celebrations, anything having to do with faith and anything having to do with celebration. They tend to push away from their family, push away from their friends. They're destroying everything in their path. And they'll still constantly say, I'm not worth it. So I always ask people to really listen. Don't just look at behavior, but listen to the words. There won't be many words, but often it's, I'm not worth it, go ahead, don't do it for me, don't bother, let that person go first. They need it more than I do. Those are signs that there could be some kind of moral injury.
Interesting. Well, that's fascinating. So it sounds like it's a deep shame that they acquire from their combat experience. And you're saying it can come or originate either because they have probably had to kill or injure other people, or their comrades have been killed or injured, and they feel like maybe they didn't do everything that they could have done to protect them.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
For example, a good example, we had a young, well, I call them my heroes, my young hero who said, who had 4 suicide attempts, 26 years old. His father had seen me on a national TV broadcast and called me right away and said, I'm going to lose my son. I think your program is our last resort.
Mm-hmm.
And he started taking part in our program, which I probably I'll explain in a moment exactly what we do. But at the point there's one point where we take them to Israel, we take them to the Holy Land. His father drove him from Arkansas to Newark, New Jersey, to make sure he met the team and got on that plane. He was that desperate. This young man, after a few months and actually about 2 days in Israel, he came up to us and said, I learned something. We went to the Holocaust Memorial, Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, and he said, I learned something in there. He said, I learned that I'm a soldier, not a murderer.
I'm sorry?
I learned that I'm a soldier, not a murderer. And he said when they were in Afghanistan, his team was ambushed. And an insurgent was about to had a good shot on his best buddy. So he had that split second to take that shot. He took the shot, saved his best buddy, but then realized the insurgent was 10 years old.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Okay, what we don't understand in this country, many civilians don't understand, is we're not fighting armies. We're fighting terrorist organizations. And they have no value of human life.
Yeah.
Their children are old enough, they go to war. We send our soldiers into war prepared physically, intellectually, maybe a little bit emotionally, but not spiritually. And so when our soldiers go to war, they're in it alone.
Yeah.
And most of the people probably on the planet, and I know in the United States, have about an 8-year-old's understanding of their faith. So they know what's good, what's bad. They know the 10 Commandments. But they don't, maybe, but there's that. But they also know the vernacular 10 Commandments, which is instead of, from the Hebrew, says lo tirtzach, which means thou shalt not murder. They see thou shalt not kill.
I see.
There's a very big difference between murdering and killing.
Yes.
But we haven't prepared them. So our soldiers come home, and as far as they're concerned, they've broken one of the top 10.
Yeah.
So what we do is we help build them up.
Okay. I want to talk about what you do, but I want to just kind of make sure I understand something that you're saying. Everybody's heard about PTSD, right? And he went to Afghanistan, or he was in Iraq, or whatever, and he's got PTSD. Are you saying that would you say that we have overdiagnosed PTSD when in fact it's moral injury?
I wouldn't say overdiagnosed. I would say we're missing the moral injury part of PTSD.
Okay.
Because when we've had a long-term study done on our program, and when the moral injury goes away, the PTSD starts going away as well. So it's on the same scale, but there's no separate diagnosis for moral injury. And most therapists are unaware of it. And so we're trying to use secular traditional therapy to deal with a God issue, to deal with a spiritual issue. And the vets don't know how to ask, and the therapists don't know to ask.
Yeah. Well, I imagine too, it's probably tough for a soldier who goes through training and all of this, and the whole purpose of training is to enable you to kill. And then when you actually do it, and you feel horrible about it, it's probably not easy to admit that you feel bad, because then, you're not being a good Marine, or you're not a good soldier. I mean, am I right on that?
There's probably a lot of that.
Yeah.
And we see it. At the same time, they're able to discern when someone's got a gun pointed at you. They're able to discern. They're able to say, you know what? I saved myself. I saved my buddy.
Yeah.
When it comes to children,
in
Afghanistan, they were often asked to stand down while children were getting abused because it was cultural.
Wow.
So how do you do that? It's one thing when you're in theater and everybody's experiencing it and you're all talking about it and you're just going, okay, you know what? It's what we had to do. And maybe you just make a joke because it's how you deal. And then you come home and you're facing that demon.
Yeah. Well, so, Judy, why do we have such a high rate of depression and suicide amongst our vets?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Number one, it's moral injury. It's not fitting in. And when I started this organization, I had done research on suicide because this started because of an experience I had as a child, as a teen. And I like to do research. I like to do my homework. And I started hearing about the suicide rate. And I'm going, even in my darkest moments, never occurred to me to take my life. And so why would someone get there? And as I started digging through research, two things kept popping up: faith and belonging. Now, as a veteran, you're looking at 1% of the population that goes into the military, and something like 1% of that population goes into combat. It's a lonely job.
Yeah.
We come home and people say, well, hire these veterans, they're leaders. Most veterans are not leaders, they weren't officers. And so there are high expectations. And they also aren't prepared to come home. The military is getting better at it. They're recognizing these issues. But where do you fit in? How do you fit in? How do you become a civilian? Now, I know my dad came home from World War II. He found a way to be a civilian, but he felt the most comfortable with his veteran buddies. And there were a lot of issues he never dealt with, because at the time it was buck it up, deal with it, get a job, have a family. And my father always taught us, you don't live off the government, you don't take from the government, you pay your taxes and you move on.
Yeah.
So now we have an entitlement society that separates people, and we have many well-meaning people in this, probably millions of people that are well-meaning, but we haven't found a way to reintegrate our vets into society. We haven't found a way to keep them comfortable.
So what does Heroes to Heroes do to help with this problem?
Well, one thing we realize that moral injury is a soul-crushing issue. It can't be handled by traditional means.
Not going to medicate your way out of
We're
that.
not going to medicate our way out of it, though that seems to be where we find many of our people being medicated out of it. We have a 12-month program. It's a curriculum-based, and it's values-based. Okay. A big challenge we have in this country is values. Okay, what are our values? If you ask your friends, what are your top 5 values? How many of them can tell you? So we start with that. We help our veterans understand and identify their values. What is important to you? And how do you live a life of values? What does your day look like? We have them do an upside down pyramid.
Yeah.
How do you spend your day? From most time to least amount of time. When they put it out there, social media, and then the most important things, the least amount of time. So then we ask them, you now have these values, you've identified your values. What does your day look like? What would your day look like if you lived a life of values?
Wow. Yeah.
So we actually help them illustrate their lives. We have them speak to their spouses and do the same exact, to ask your spouses, what is your spouse's value?
Yeah, very good.
And then where do you compare? Where do things match? Where do they conflict? And how do you deal with values conflict? How do you give your spouse the room, which is really in any good marriage, to take time to live their values? So we start with values, and they work in small teams. And they work with a coach who is an alumnus of the program. So all of
small teams, a coach.
Small teams, coach. So there's a team of 5 or 6.
Okay.
And we also have invited IDF soldiers to be part of it. And I'll explain why. So they join us from Israel. We also invite IDF soldiers who are living here and struggling into our program here. But they work online with a coach who has been through the program, who has experienced moral injury, who has experienced the healing. They have written assignments. They meet twice a month online.
And so it's a year-long program.
It's a year-long program.
Who developed it?
I developed it along with 2 psychologists we work with.
Uh-huh.
Now a third psychologist is involved with the program. Jean Harris out of the VA. She developed their Building Spiritual Strength program.
Okay.
And Dr. Joseph Currier out of University of South Alabama. He's actually published a long-term study on our program.
Oh, great.
And
is it a Christian, explicitly Christian
it
program?
is a non-denominational, but 98% of our participants are Christian.
Okay.
So the journey tends to take more of a Christian flavor when there's an entire group who's Christian.
Yeah.
In the 5th month, they travel to Israel
Yeah.
and spend 10 days. And during that time, it's not a party. They don't go out at night. They don't experience Tel Aviv at night. They have their team meetings at night. The meetings continue. And they have written assignments every night.
Okay.
So for example, in Israel, the first night they're there, they write a letter to God.
Okay.
And we published a book called
Yeah.
Letters to God, and
Oh,
I
wow.
actually will bring you one. I should have brought you one here.
Yeah.
And they write those letters, and when they write those letters, they start to understand their pain. What do I want from God? Is God close to me? How far away is God from me? The entire journey in Israel is about that experience of reconnecting to God to find faith and to find forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is the most important element in this process.
Yeah.
So they have to know what to ask for.
Yeah. And so, is this a free program?
We have a $500 program fee,
Okay.
and that
So where do people go that want to find out more about it?
they go to our website,
And what is that?
heroes2heroes.org, HeroesToHeroes.org.
.org. Okay. Now, do you also minister to families of vets?
We do not. We
Okay.
have a huge waiting list of veterans.
Uh-huh.
We tend to be the program of last resort for many. So we would love to minister to the families. Maybe God willing, someday with support, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah. And is it like a small group ministry or online, or how does that work?
Okay, so it works online. In each team, we have each cohort, we set up cohorts, and they have 6 heroes on their team.
Okay.
And they all start at the same time, and we have 5 to 6 cohorts that travel their journey to Israel together.
Okay.
And we traveled during the war, and our next cohort just started. So we will, God willing, send up to 80 to 100 veterans on the program this year. They'll complete the program. We'll onboard another 100
Wow.
for 2026.
Amazing. How many vets have been through the program?
Over 500.
Over 500.
And thank God we have had no suicides among our participants.
That's terrific. That is really awesome. So, how are you supported?
Privately.
Private
we have
donations.
private donations. So we reach out. We have been turned down by every government entity and many foundations because we hit 2 things. We hit faith and Israel.
Uh-huh.
And most businesses will turn away from those 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
So we knock on doors, and people like your viewers, your businesses, that's who will support us. People.
So if you want to support saving vets, right? Literally saving their lives, but also saving their souls, which is what saves their lives. Go to heroes2heroes.org and donate today. Support them. And do you have a newsletter or subscriber list as well?
Yes, we have a subscriber list.
Okay.
And if you go on our website, you can register for that list.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for what you're doing to help America's heroes and to stand behind them. On behalf of Truth and Liberty, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show, Judy.
Thank you so much.
You bet.